The second Israel-Hamas ceasefire of the war began on January 19, 2025, a fragile pause after months of relentless fighting. This 42-day truce came after weeks of behind-the-scenes negotiations mediated by Qatar, Egypt and the United States.
שהגעתי אנחנו פה המשפחה מחכה לה.
אני מבטיח לכם, אנחנו נעמוד בכל יעדי המלחמה, אנחנו נחזיר את כולם הביתה. עד היום ישבנו הביתה 157 מחטופינו, מהם 117 בחיים. בהסכם שאושר כעת, אנחנו נשיב הביתה עוד 33 מאחינו ואחיותינו, רובם בחיים.
الله مكيفين
هذول عساكر؟ It brought a temporary silence to the front lines and the first real opportunity in months to return hostages and prisoners who had become the most powerful symbols of the conflict. The agreement called for Hamas to release 33 Israeli hostages. In return, Israel would free about 1,900 Palestinian prisoners from its jails. For families on both sides, it was a moment of excruciating anticipation, the hope that loved ones would finally come home. On the first day of the truce, the world watched as fighters from Hamas's Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades cleared a path for Red Cross vehicles. Crowds gathered in Gaza City, waving flags, chanting and straining to glimpse the moment of handover. For the first time in months, the exchange of hostages and prisoners replaced the sounds of airstrikes and artillery. Across the border in Israel, families who had endured sleepless nights finally had their first embrace. At Sheba Hospital in Ramat Gan, 13-year-old former hostage Emily Damari walked into the arms of her waiting relatives. Doran Steinbrecher, another freed hostage, broke down as she hugged her family. These reunions, broadcast live on Israeli television, became moments of collective relief. In Tel Aviv, thousands gathered in what has become known as Hostages Square. People danced, sang and held posters bearing the faces of those still missing. On a giant outdoor screen, live news coverage showed the first freed hostages stepping off Red Cross vehicles. For some, it was a moment of joy. For others, a reminder that many more were still in captivity. On the eve of the exchange, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation. "I promise you," he said, "we will meet all the war goals. We will bring everyone home." To date, we have returned 157 of our kidnapped people, 117 of whom are alive. In the agreement that has now been ratified, we will bring home another 33 of our brothers and sisters, most of them alive. His remarks reflected both determination and the limits of what this deal could achieve. While Israeli families welcomed their loved ones, scenes in the occupied West Bank were strikingly different. Outside Ofer prison, buses carrying freed Palestinian prisoners rolled past cheering crowds. Fireworks lit the night sky as the convoys moved toward Beitunia, where thousands had gathered to celebrate. Families hugged sons and daughters they had not seen for years. For them, these releases were not concessions but homecomings. The exchanges continued in stages over the following days. In Gaza City, militants escorted 4 Israeli women to Red Cross officials. The scene was tense but orderly. Red Cross staff documented the handovers, then moved the freed women toward Israeli custody. Shortly afterward, a helicopter transported them to Petah Tikva's Rabin Medical Center. As it touched down, one of the women, Daniela Gilboa, waved to the crowd below. Nearby, families and hospital staff cheered and clapped.
سلام العز والفخر بكم يا قاهر الطغيان قسم.
כדי את האירוע הזה על הבמה, ורק מחכה שכבר...
Meanwhile, in Ramallah, Palestinian prisoners arrived to thunderous chants. Crowds carried some of them on their shoulders, waving Hamas flags and singing slogans in support of the group's armed wing. At the Ramallah recreational complex, relatives lined up to embrace the returnees. Among them was Khalil Muslim, greeted by family members who had waited years for his release. Later in January, the exchanges continued with more personal stories. Israeli soldier Agam Berger, long held in Gaza, was handed over to the Red Cross in Jabalia. Images released by the Israeli army showed her transfer to Israeli troops. In Re'im, her family gathered around a screen and erupted in tears of joy as they watched her walk free. Soon afterward, an Israeli Air Force helicopter flew her to Beilinson Hospital, where she was reunited with other former hostages, Liri Albag, Karina Ariev, Daniela Gilboa and Nama Levy, all of whom had been released earlier in the month. In Khan Yunis, another Israeli hostage, Arbel Yehud, was handed over under the watch of Hamas militants. The scene, described by observers as harrowing, underscored the human cost of the conflict. Soon after, she too was flown to Israel and taken to the Sheba Medical Center in Ramat Gan for treatment and reunion with her family. Among the most poignant moments of the January exchanges was the release of 80-year-old German-Israeli citizen Gadi Moses. Freed after more than 15 months in captivity, he was greeted by his family in Re'im. The emotional scene, the elderly man embraced by relatives after such a long ordeal, was replayed across Israeli media. The ceasefire also enabled the release of several foreign nationals. At the Shamir Medical Center in Bir Yaakov, 5 Thai nationals who had been abducted were welcomed by community members and medical staff. Their return highlighted the broader international dimension of the crisis. As buses carrying freed Palestinian prisoners departed Israeli facilities, many waved through the windows at the cheering crowds. Among the returnees celebrated in Ramallah was Zakaria Zubeidi, a high-profile figure in Palestinian militancy. Carried on the shoulders of supporters, he was welcomed like a returning hero. In Gaza's Khan Yunis, other Palestinian prisoners embraced loved ones at the European hospital. For their families, the moment was not just a reunion, but a sign that even amid war, negotiated pauses could bring people back alive. The ceasefire held long enough to enable further exchanges. By mid-February, the 6th round of swaps took place. In Khan Yunis, masked militants assembled again, preparing to transfer hostages. Cameras captured the moment when Israeli-Russian hostage Sasha Trupanov was escorted across a stage by militants before being handed to the Red Cross. The images showed the same uneasy mix of cooperation and hostility that had characterized the entire process.
בוא תשב מאמי. אבא. שמעתי פעם את אמא שלכם.
אבי, עדיין. פשוט תהיה 10 שניות. יצא רחוב! יצא רחוב!
In Kfar Saba, friends of Israeli-Argentine hostage Yair Horn gathered in a living room, watching television as live footage confirmed his release alongside 2 others. Their tears and embraces reflected a private relief that resonated across the country. That same night in Tel Aviv, crowds in Hostages Square cheered and clapped as they watched live television coverage of the Red Cross receiving the 3 hostages from Gaza militants. Shortly afterward, the Israeli army released its own footage, showing the hostages being transferred into their custody at the Gaza-Israel border. Despite these exchanges, the ceasefire did not end the conflict. Protests continued in Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv, where demonstrators gathered under the Hakiria Bridge. Holding signs and chanting, they demanded the government do more to secure the return of all remaining hostages. For many, each deal was welcome but incomplete, a step forward that left unanswered questions about the future. The January-February 2025 exchanges were historic in scale. Over the course of the 42-day truce, 33 Israeli hostages and around 1,900 Palestinian prisoners were released. The images from Gaza, the West Bank and Israel offered a rare glimpse of hope in a conflict that has too often seemed unending. Yet they also underscored the deep divisions that persist. For the families who were reunited, the ceasefire will be remembered as a time of relief. For those still waiting, it was a reminder of the work left to be done. And for the region as a whole, it showed that even in the midst of one of the world's most intractable wars, negotiated pauses can save lives, at least for a moment. As the truce expired in late February, the guns and rockets began to sound again. But the memory of that fragile ceasefire, the hugs at hospitals, the buses welcomed in Ramallah, the parades in Gaza, and the tears of parents watching screens in Tel Aviv remains a powerful testament to what is possible when fighting stops, however briefly.
حبيبي علاء